Hey guys, we're in some beautiful private property in Southern California looking at the new Raleigh Tamland IE. And it's important that we're in private property or sort of the off-road forest land because this is a speed pedelec. It goes up to 28 miles per hour. It's phenomenal. It's quiet. It's incredibly comfortable considering that it's got a rigid alloy fork here. It's not steel or carbon fiber. There's no real suspension. It's just these tires. They're 650B by 47C. So a little bit fatter. That's roughly 27.5 by 1.85 inches. And you can see they're just relatively fat. I think it's like 46 to 65 PSI. We've dropped it down here for trail riding so it would be a little bit more comfortable. And it's managing very, very well. It's neat to have these drop bars a little bit more aggressive. You can be here, up in the hoods, or down in those flared drop sections, and just getting aerodynamic and feeling really sporty. If you're riding this around town, the narrow bars are going to allow you to squeeze through cars and, again, just get that aggressive, smooth performance. And then out here on the trail, a little bit wider, gives you some power over those bars and over the increased weight on the wheels and the bigger tires and stuff. I do want to call out that there's a through axle up front, so that's 15 millimeters. A little bit sturdier. It's going to give you some strength as you're going over these bumps and things. You're not going to get as much flex, just better performance all around. I noticed that there's a threaded eyelet here near the base of the fork and then also up here on the arch, so you could put some fenders on this possibly. I'm not sure about racks. You might need another threaded eyelet, but there's all kinds of solutions out there these days. And then in the back, same thing. Got threaded eyelets up here on the seat stays, and then down there, two of them, so you could have maybe a fender. In fact, I see another threaded eyelet up there. So there's just a lot of possibilities. You could turn this into a trekking bike or sort of a semi-mountain bike. I mean, I rode up here and it was a blast. You've got a great range here. This is a Sram Drivetrain. It's 11 to 42 teeth, so extra wide range. Just giving you a ton of, I guess, just possibilities in terms of climbing and also higher speed pedaling with that 11-tooth sprocket, 48-tooth chain ring, and it's got these alloy plates that double as a bash guard in case you take a hit on a rock or a stump or something like that. The chain shouldn't be bouncing off, and again with a larger chain ring and then that ultra wide, again this is SRAM Apex back here on the derailleur with tons of choices, 11 sprockets. That gives you the possibilities to hit and maintain those higher speeds, but also climb pretty effectively. I want to mention that this does have like a roller clutch, so you can push the derailleur down and then activate that. See the little lock right there? That's going to allow you to service the rear wheel a little bit easier. This also has a through axle, so it's got the kind of quick release threaded unscrew setup. I unthreaded it, and it's about 12 millimeters for the first section, and then it drops down to 10 millimeters for the rest. So I'm not sure if this is 10 millimeter or 12 millimeter. I do like that it has provisions for a kickstand, and it includes this adjustable length stand. That's nice for when you're around town and even out here on the trail. I just kind of leaned it up against the dirt, but having that kickstand there, it is going to bounce around a little bit if you're off-road, and you could easily take it off. But again, it kind of depends on the environment you're in. I did not see a slap guard over here. That's something you might want to add just because the paint is pretty nice. We've got this dark gray and then the glossy black and maroon up top, and then the satin maroon up on that fork. It really stands out. At first, it's kind of like unique colors that you don't see a whole lot, but they grow on you for sure. This bike has a 31.6 millimeter seat post, so if you wanted to, that would be another way to soften, cushion the ride a little bit. Add maybe a thud buster or a body float connect, and you could really reduce the jar right there. You're still going to be a little bit more forward and aggressive, but you could flip this stem. I think it's negative right now, but you could flip it to be up, and we're on top of all those spacers. So there are several ways that you can make this bike just a little bit more comfortable if you want to, but stock really isn't too bad. WTB saddle, got these nice Well-Go pedals, and then the weight of the drive system is relatively low and centered. So this is roughly 500 watt-hour lithium-ion battery pack. I would call it fully integrated. I mean, you can see the top of the battery, but both sides have the frame, just the color, the paint and everything. It looks really nice. So this bike blends in a little bit, and they made room for those bottle cage bosses. You could use that for a folding lock, a mini pump, all kinds of stuff. Just tons of possibilities. And then back down here, that's the motor. That's the Brose Drive T. So they have a new one that's like the Drive S. It's a little bit sportier, maybe even a little bit more efficient, but this still gives you 90 Newton meters of torque. It's incredibly quiet, and it's measuring your rear wheel speed, pedal cadence, and pedal torque. It's just really dynamic. It's smooth. It's one of the few drive systems where you can pedal gently and it's not going to overpower you, even if you're on the highest level of assist. And then the harder you push, it really starts to kick in. So I like it. It actually performs very well off-road, even though, again, it's just the Drive T. It's not their new, like, mountain biking specific motor. I think it's very capable. Before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit more about, like, the hoods and this whole setup up here. So we do have the Hydro R SRAM. These are 4-finger brake levers, so you can kind of reach them if you're up in the hoods or down here in the drops. And then there's the paddle shifter. So one short click goes to a higher gear, and then a longer click, that goes to lower gears. And you can actually shift 3 gears at a time. So it's kind of fun to experiment with this thing. It's a lot like a road bike if you're used to that. And then they've got this accessory bar up front, and that's where they mounted the button pad. So your cockpit's pretty clean. There's maybe even room for like a Garmin or something else. I appreciate how all the cables are internally routed throughout the frame, kept out of the way, especially since this is something of an off-road bike. And back down at the rotors, we have a dual piston caliper from SRAM, and then 180 millimeter rotor centerline and 160 millimeter centerline rotor in the rear. Just a great setup. The brakes have been working well. The larger rotor at the front helps to stop you. It does a lot of work because your weight sort of shifts forwards as you're stopping, especially if you're descending. I appreciate that this bike comes in 3 different sizes. I'm on the medium 19-inch right now. It's relatively lightweight at about 46.3 pounds, and the battery is just 6.4 pounds. So you could take that off, easily hang this on the back of your car if you have a car rack, or even lift it upstairs. There's just a lot that you can do with this thing, but you are going to have to bring the charger with you if you plan on going a little bit further. That might come back to adding a rack or something. This is what it looks like. It's 4 amps, so that's pretty good. Weighs 1.9 pounds compared to the Bosch charger, 1.7 pounds. A little bit smaller. These both have a plastic case, even though this looks kind of like metal at first. And it uses the Rosenberger magnetic charging interface right there. And you can see there's a little bit of dust on it. This can collect like iron filings if you set it on the ground in your garage. And you can take out the wall size, so that makes it a little bit smaller. Like that, right? A little bit more compact. It's not bad. I feel like both of these chargers are pretty good. The interface here is proprietary, and if it gets bumped, it's not going to bend as easily. And this one just pops right off because it's magnetic. So great job on that, Brose. The charging port itself is right up here, and there's this little rubber cover. I wish this had a leash or something so that it would hang right there, kind of like on your gas tank on a car. Because as it stands, you set it down on the ground, and you forget it, and then you're left without a cover, and it'll look like that for the rest of the bike's life. And so that's something that's always kind of bugged me a little bit. But I do appreciate that the charging port is way up high. It's not near the crank arms, so it's going to be less likely that you bump it if you're moving the bike. A lot of times when you back a bike up, the pedals turn backwards. And then if we come down to, actually, let's just bring the bike out a little bit. There we go. Kickstand's coming in handy already. And if we come down here to the locking core, it's made by TKM. I'm not as familiar with them. This is a little bit closer to those crank arms. See how it passes right by it. It fits as long as you don't have a keychain connected to this, but just be careful. You don't want to accidentally bend or snag and then break your key off in the cylinder. I'm going to go ahead and unlock it. You'll notice it doesn't spring back. So this is the kind of thing you want to remember, maybe even right away when you take the battery off. You can put it back like this and then pull it out. And that way you can just click it in, and I think this is spring loaded there. So yeah, that's what it looks like inside the frame. Here's the battery pack itself. Got the little charging port. You know, not too bad. Lithium-ion cells tend to be really reliable and fairly lightweight. There we go. Let's fit in, and I'm just going to push down. Clicks in. Feels pretty secure. A little bit of rattling here, but I haven't noticed it when we were riding. And again, just positions that weight right next to the battery, low, centered on the frame. This is the other side of the Brose drive system. I love how compact this thing is. It weighs about 7.5 pounds. And I think it's actually similar to the base of that chainring, so you shouldn't get a lot of strikes. I Thought it was interesting that the crank arms on this are a little bit longer, 175 millimeter versus 170s on a lot of other bikes. Okay, when it's time to power this thing on, you have to physically press that button if you haven't touched the bike for over 2 hours. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. There we go, and then the display comes to life. It's pretty bright out, but you'll notice when it comes to life, it's actually pretty bright itself. White readouts here. I'm gonna arrow down. Usually it starts in cruise, and if you arrow down to off, there's this little triangle which means walk mode. So if you hold the down arrow, the motor will automatically turn on and you can get some help pushing the bike, which could be really nice if you struggle with a climb or it's just too bumpy or deep, the sand maybe is deep. These tires are nice because they're smooth in the middle and they've got some ridges towards the outside, but they're still not knobby enough to handle the really soft stuff. So walk mode's kind of neat. A lot of bikes don't have that enabled these days. Otherwise, you've got cruise, tour, and sport at the highest level. And then in the middle, we have speed. Right now it's in kilometers per hour, but if we press the on-off button and then we press on-off and menu simultaneously for a couple seconds, it seems like it works best if you start with menu and then press on-off and then release. If you do that, it'll switch between units. So we've got speed in the middle, 10-bar battery infographic. I really appreciate that. It's a little bit more precise than the 5-bar that you see on a lot of other systems. And then that dot up there, or the menu button here, cycles through all the trip stats. So we've got trip time, there's total trip distance, and then I think this is total trip time, clock, trip distance, average trip speed, and then trip time again. So then we're circling back through. If you want to reset any of these things, all you have to do is hold the menu and then light for a few seconds, and it resets all of them at once. So it's kind of a neat display, and one of the things I really appreciate about it is if you turn it off, you can slide it right off, put it in your pocket, and then no one's going to tamper with this at the bike rack. And down here, check it out, there's a full-size USB Type A 5-volt, 500 milliamp USB port. So you could maybe put your Garmin up here, or again, we were talking about having room on the accessory bar. It's just a neat display. I really like this thing. Relatively easy to see, it's adjustable, clicks on easily. And now, I'll just press the power button again quickly. Because we left the battery on, this times out after a couple hours if you aren't using it. But since we left that part on, the display comes back on and we're basically ready to ride. I guess one thing I'd be thinking about though with this layout is reaching those buttons. You really kind of have to take your hands out of the optimal riding positions and do a little bit of reaching. That could be slid over a tiny bit more, or maybe you could flip the bar and hang it over here, but you don't want it to get in the way. It's really tough. It'd be nice if it was mounted down here, but it gets the job done, and they had to make a system that would work for many different bike platforms. So I feel like it's good enough. This is my buddy Jim. What's your role at the company, Jim?
I am the marketing manager for the iZip brand, the Raleigh brand, and High Bike now. So.
Fantastic, man. We're getting out here. We're riding in Southern California. Beautiful bike path, dirt path actually, and we've got the Tamland. This bike is just, again, so comfortable with those bigger tires, and we've lowered the pressure a little bit. So I thought I'd get some third-person shots. You want to ride with me and just
Sure, let's go.
Take it away. That bike's pretty fast. It can be difficult to keep up with it sometimes. Yeah. And this is the kind of terrain that's perfect for it because it's relatively smooth. And those tires absorb the bumps enough. They're pretty slick right down the center, and they've got a little bit of tread as it edges out towards the sides. And you can see the tire ballooning down there under his weight because we've lowered that pressure. You can see him standing up now for some of those bigger bumps so that he doesn't have to absorb the impact through his, you know, bottom and back. Awesome.
All right.
High five, buddy.
We'll go straight up here. If we go back down the canyon, we'll head back up here and go up.
Let's do the straight up here. I'm just gonna shift down so that I can.
Yeah, because I left it in a high gear.
Those plus size tires, you know, really absorbing some of the bumps, giving him good traction. And I'm here with some slicks. It's gonna be hard to get started again. Okay guys, I'm in sport mode. I'm just gonna start pedaling and shine the camera around. I can hear the battery rattling just a little bit in the frame right now. But this is a pretty bumpy section for a bike like this. Go ahead and shift down a little bit. Oh boy. It's pretty stable. I like to do the no hands test. Those big fat tires, they're doing pretty well with this softer dirt. Definitely get going pretty fast. We're up to 25 miles per hour there at the shift up. I think Brose does support you up to closer to that 120 RPM, so you don't have to shift gears as much to hit the higher speeds. So I'm on the concrete right now, sidewalk, but I'm going to transition to just some dirt, kind of a gravel road, and it feels really nice on both, but I wanted to start on the concrete so you can hear the motor. Again, up to 90 Newton meters of peak torque, no shift detection. I might shift through the gears a little bit. You just need to ease off a bit because it's relying on torque, rear wheel speed, and cadence to activate. And when you ease off the torque, you don't push as hard, the motor backs off pretty seamlessly. This is just a fun view to let you see the trail and get a sense for speed. I've got those 11 gears, 11 to 42 teeth, just a really wide range. I'm going to shift through a little bit, and I definitely appreciate that guide. Alloy plates on both sides of the chainring. It acts as a bash guard in the front, and it keeps from dropping if you are on some sort of bumpy terrain like this. Well, guys, that's the Raleigh Tamland IE, $4,749. It's a little bit more expensive, but you get the 2-year comprehensive warranty, great frame warranty as well. Raleigh is distributed through a bunch of different dealers throughout the U.S. They've been around for a while. It's one of the older brands from, it's like a British brand actually, but now they're distributed internationally, and I feel like it's nice when you can get to see one of these in person at a shop and get the right size for your body and just give it a test ride. Again, I'm very impressed with the Brose system. Really delighted with the comfort that this offers, even stock, and then back to the seat post suspension as an option. For the full write-up on this, including all the measurements from this specific frame, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, have fun out there, follow the rules, and ride safe. So Jim was kind enough to drive us out here, and he's got his truck all set up. Really nice. You got the rock sliders, the steps, and then this Hollywood rack. This is the non-e-bike rack, but it still secures them really well. It's rated up to 100 pounds, and since we've got a 52-pound high bike and a 46-pound Raleigh,
we're barely under.
We're doing it. We're doing it. Yeah, and I guess they have a 4x hitch setup as well. And then you said there's a 200-pound rated e-bike
yeah,
one.
there's a 200-pound e-bike for 2 bikes, which is great. I haven't tried it, but you know, it's got a 2-inch hitch on it, so it's going to hold it no matter what.
Yeah.
And the bikes never move on this thing.
Well, we didn't even take the batteries off, so that's something you know you can do. We were just in a hurry, but I just want to say thanks again, man. It's been a really good time.